mentioned you started it at university, and in my opinion, university, it's honestly, in my opinion, best place to start a company because you're surrounded by almost unlimited resources. You have a ton of people right around you that are willing to work for free towards an idea or whatever. As soon as you leave college, you're kind of off on your own. People have jobs going on, they have families, they have mortgages now, they have rent. You know, you don't get the same support from professors and things like that too. So how did you go about building your team up, right? Did you, like, I know you started it with some of your friends. You said, were they co-founders? How did those relationships develop? And then how did you go from, all right, we're going to do this to like, all right, how do we build an app, right? Like, what was that for? Because this is my first tech company, right? And building an app over the last year has been a whole new experience for me. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and like going from, all right, we have this idea, right? Like we're all bought in, like we're going to try this. How do we get from the idea to like, okay, let's actually build this app? And how did you guys go about that?
Yeah. So 2 points that you hit on there that I think are really interesting. And the first one is as a university, a really great place to start a business. And I think that, before I even get into, us, I think that our greatest advantage about starting Loom at UW was the fact that we were completely ignorant of everything else that was going on around us. When we thought about the way that things should be, we didn't think about the way that things currently are. We just thought about what the most ideal scenario is for emerging and independent musicians to grow their brand on the same platform that fans would stream their music on, and how can we allow them to do that and make more money? We didn't think about anything else. And that almost lack of experience really opened up a lot of creativity. My favorite quote in the world is Steve Jobs. You're trained to think that you go to school, you find a job, you get in a house, and you have a happy family. But once you realize that everything around you was created by people that were no smarter than you, then you have the ability to create things that people will use. And then everything else goes away, and you realize that the world is filled with limitless potential. And so going back to us, we had our first meeting of our think tank in our friend's dorm room, or his apartment building, actually. And I wrote up a 1-sheet piece of paper that I actually probably could go back and find, but it's, literally going in there and talking about ideas, right? Unleashing that creative potential. And so as we started to realize that Loom was really what we wanted to do, we were approaching the second semester of our senior year, and, it was decision time, right? We had no financing. We had no technical co-founders. And so I remember having a conversation with my dad over winter break. And my dad, being a background in healthcare and life sciences, was really, really interested in me, pursuing my passions at Rothschild and investment banking. And I remember telling him that I was really, really, really passionate about this, and I potentially wanted to forego my offer to do Loom full time. And I'm pretty sure his original response was, God, I'll disown you if you do that. And now, of course, he's our biggest supporter. But that's always the story I tell people, because it shows the level, I think, of dedication and motivation that you truly need to have, which goes back to your final point, was how do you get through all of these early barriers of a startup? Raising your first dollar, or your first $1,000, or your first $50,000, trying to create an app when you have absolutely no technical experience, and trying to create a company when you don't have a lot of professional business experience. And I always use the analogy of walls. You get to these walls, and almost a lot of the time for startups and for early entrepreneurs and founders, the walls are kind of like the weed out classes in college. We don't have a technical co-founder, so we need to go out, and we can't hire anybody. So we need to bring on a software development firm. Well, as I'm sure you guys have experienced over the course of the last year, however you guys have developed your app, the process of doing that is extremely strenuous and hard to do, but you just keep kind of checking off those boxes. And so we we raised our first $50,000 from friends and family. I mean, as close to going out on the street and asking people for money as you literally can get. And we used that first $50,000 to sign a contract with a local, actually a software development firm in Austin, Texas. And that was finally what gave us the confidence to, on the day we graduated, call up our previous jobs and let them know that we were going to end up pursuing Loom full time. Those first three things are some of the biggest walls that we faced. But every time you get past it, you realize that, you have a little bit more confidence, and you realize that you can, again, going back to Steve Jobs, continue to do what you need to do to be successful. But it's an exceptionally long and lonely road if you don't have people to support yourself with, which we were very, very lucky to have phenomenal mentors and advisors that we worked really, really hard to get. Before we did anything, we went out and found people that knew more than we did that could put us in really great positions to succeed. Yeah,
we keep going back and forth. You touch on so many important things there. I think the mentor thing is huge, and I want to get into that later. And to your point, right? If you don't, and I love your analogy with the walls, right? Because that's all entrepreneur. It's like you're playing this board game, and you just got to keep like moving down the path and keep going over these different obstacles and crossing things off your list, and continuing to just take one step forward every day. I think that's a fantastic analogy. I think people building out tech companies, especially trying to figure out ways to build their product, right? You guys understood where your skill set lied with, not having technical. I'm not a technical person either. So I was like, okay, well, I need to find a technical co-founder, or I need to hire a person or an agency to build this. Now, there's a lot of different strategies that go in with that as well. So you guys went with a US-based firm, right? Which can be expensive, but typically highest quality and fastest approach, right? To getting something to production, right? A lot of people will hire freelancers. A lot of people will hire overseas firms, like, and we've done a mix, like with our platform, right? So there's a lot of different ways of doing it, and I really like how you guys brought that up. Going back to the mentors, what was it that made you seek out these advisors and people? Like, not a lot of people have that initiative, I would say, to like know, like, we need some serious help. And what was your approach to them? How did you land these men? It's hard to like get people's time, right? If they're successful, it's hard to get their time. So what was your approach on finding these advisors and mentors, and how did you get in touch with them and get their time?
When we started Loom, I think one of our earliest mature steps that we did was we did a risk analysis. We looked at the 9 different types of business risk. We went sales risk, team risk, recruiting risk, financing risk. And what we realized is that we didn't have any of them covered at all. And I think that is the nature of being in a startup. There is startups that are years ahead of us that still don't have 4 or 5 types of major business risk covered. And that's just the nature of being in a startup, is you do cut corners. You figure out how to continue to, move forward really with whatever you have and whatever it takes. And I think you just have to kind of accept that. And you made a really good point. Would you rather be would you rather be average or less than average at 9 things? Or would you rather be really, really, really good at 3 things? And I'm a big believer in doubling down on your strengths. And so when we did that risk analysis and we started to think about what we needed to do to succeed, one of the greatest lessons that I had learned early on was that the best leaders in the world are the ones who surround themselves with people that are smarter than them, because it's so much better to be surrounded by people that can help you grow and build and create products than it is to guess. Guessing allows you to get, hard work can get you anywhere in the world that you want to be, but being efficient can get you there faster. And so for us, we were in such a growth mindset early on, so immature to some extent, that we wanted to learn as quickly as possible. And so when we went to think about our mentorship approach, early on, we thought about it a lot like our financing. Reach out to every person in our network and what do we need help with? I really believe that sometimes people are really afraid to ask for help. And asking for help is one of the purest signs that people can be real leaders and can grow successful companies, because the greatest skill set in the world is knowing that you don't know everything. And once you know that, you're really, really hungry to go out and find people that do.
Yeah, I think that's great advice.